People aren't broke. They've stopped playing the game. Over 54 million Americans are now behind on rent, credit cards, or utilities, and most of them aren't even trying to catch up. They're done. They're ghosting the system, tanking their credit on purpose, and watching their lives get better. And the craziest part? It's working. Missed payments are exploding. Credit card delinquencies are up 58% year over year. Student loans? 1 in 3 borrowers hasn't made a single payment since the freeze ended. This isn't a financial crisis, it's a full-blown rebellion, and if you think it won't hit you, you're already late. People are now using layoffs as a debt escape hatch. This one's going to sting a bit, but people are getting laid off, and they're relieved. Why? Because layoffs, once feared like financial death, have now become a backdoor to freedom. Unemployment is the new pause button. Tens of thousands of Americans are no longer crying when they get the pink slip they're calculating. Because when the paychecks stop, so does the pressure to keep up the charade. Suddenly, you qualify for forbearance. Suddenly, the banks can't garnish what you don't earn. And the collection agencies, they lose leverage the moment you lose income. It's no accident that after tech layoffs surged again in late 2025, with Amazon, Google, and dozens of fintech firms axing over 100,000 jobs, there was a parallel spike in missed payments and defaulted loans. People aren't panicking. They're timing their collapse. Even CNBC admitted this. Workers are using job loss to reset their finances and strategically ignore unsecured debt. That's the game now. Get laid off, file for unemployment, pause your rent negotiations, delay your car loan payments, and call your bank with those magic words, lost income. It's not a sob story. It's a script. People have learned that instability buys them breathing room, and for many it's the only time the system gives them grace. The more cynical ones are even gaming at riding the job-hopping wave with short stints, cashing a few paychecks, then ghosting before creditors catch on. It sounds reckless, but when your debt-to-income ratio is 92% and every hour you work gets eaten by interest, why not take the exit ramp? This is the rebellion. No one's talking about weaponized instability. People aren't just falling behind, they're using the chaos as cover. They're leveraging disruption to disappear. And it's spreading fast. The gig economy makes it even easier. You don't get W-2s. You don't leave a paper trail. You just vanish, debt in tow. The creditors can't keep up. The system, once built on predictable paychecks and compliant consumers, is now chasing shadows. When work becomes temporary, so does obligation. And millions have realized the fastest way to escape the trap is to let the trap collapse behind you. Minimum payments are the new punchline. Let's be real. Nobody takes minimum payments seriously anymore except for the people still working inside a spreadsheet at Visa. Out here, it's a joke. A cruel one. $168 minimum on a $9,000 balance that's growing by $130 a month in interest? That's not a payment. That's a shakedown. And people are done pretending it's anything else. According to the Federal Reserve's latest survey of consumer finances, over 58% of revolving credit card holders now pay less than the interest accrued each month. That means the debt grows even when you're paying. This is why people are saying screw it, because they've realized the math isn't just bad, it's predatory by design. That $168 doesn't pay down the principal. It doesn't buy you freedom. It buys you silence. It keeps the account in good standing so your credit score survives another month, but your actual debt, it grows like mold in the dark. And here's the kicker. People have figured out that missing payments for 3 months often gets you a better deal than paying minimums for 10 years. Debt settlement firms know this. So do the creditors. When accounts go seriously delinquent, lenders get scared. Suddenly, that $9,000 balance becomes a one-time offer of $3,500. You know what that tells you? Minimum payments were never about responsibility. They were about milking the obedient. The moment you stop obeying, the real negotiation begins. TikTok is filled with debt payoff stories where people stopped paying and months later settled their balances for 30 cents on the dollar. And the people paying minimums? They're left holding the bag. It's financial Stockholm Syndrome. The more loyal you are, the worse it gets. And Americans are waking up to that. They're ghosting their credit cards, not out of ignorance, but because they've run the numbers. Minimum payments don't protect you, they trap you. And in 2026, being trapped is the new failure. People want exit strategies, not slow drownings, so they're skipping the minimums, tanking their score temporarily, and coming out cleaner than the guy who did everything right. It's a wild upside-down economy, and the folks still making minimum payments? They're not safe, they're just next. Healthcare debt has been redefined as optional. Medical bills have become optional, not legally, not officially, but practically, absolutely. In 2025, more than 43 million Americans had unpaid medical debt. That's not a fluke, that's a cultural shift. Because unlike your rent or your car loan, hospitals can't repo your gallbladder. And most people now know it. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau already changed the rules. Most unpaid medical debt under $500 doesn't even show up on your credit report anymore. And the big three bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, dropped over 70% of medical collections from their reporting in the last 2 years. You think people didn't notice? They did, and they've adjusted accordingly. Hospitals are now complaining about patients who ghost after emergency visits. Not because they don't understand the bill, because they know it's uncollectible. People walk in with chest pain, get $12,000 in testing, walk out, and never look back. And here's the kicker. Most of the time, it works. Medical billing departments send letters, maybe make a few calls, but unless you're being sued, which only happens in less than 0.2% of cases, nothing happens. And Americans are learning that. They're sharing strategies on Reddit and Facebook about how to let the bill die. Some even go in with fake names or burn phones. That's how deep this rebellion runs. Because medical debt is unlike any other kind of debt. You didn't choose it. You didn't swipe a card at the ER. You got sick, and people have stopped feeling guilty about that. Even doctors now tell patients, don't pay the bill unless they sue you. It sounds insane, but in today's healthcare economy, insanity is the only sane response. Hospitals charge $90 for a Tylenol, $3,000 for a CT scan, then act shocked when people say no thanks. And in states like California and New York, new laws are protecting patients from aggressive collections. Medical providers now have to offer payment plans, means-based adjustments, even forgiveness programs. But guess what? Most patients don't apply. They just ignore it. Because the new logic is this: if it won't hurt me, I won't pay it. Medical bills are now seen like parking tickets in a lawless town, technically enforceable, but rarely enforced. And when the population catches on to that, the whole system collapses under its own greed. That's already happening. Utilities are now negotiable because survival trumps consequences. You'd think losing power or water would be the final line people won't cross, right? Wrong. Turns out even utilities are becoming negotiable, and not in the "I'll pay next week" kind of way, in the "I know my rights and I'm not paying unless I absolutely have to" kind of way. Americans have learned how to game utility billing systems the same way they once played credit cards. And honestly, it's working. According to the National Energy Assistance Directors Association, over 20 million households were behind on their energy bills in 2025. That's 1 in 6 homes, and utilities aren't shutting off power like they used to. Why? Because bad press, public shame, and regulation threats have them spooked. States like New York, Illinois, and California now ban disconnections during extreme temperature seasons. And guess what? Every season is now extreme. Winter, protection. Summer heat wave, protection. People figured it out. They intentionally miss bills during protected months, buy time, then file for hardship extensions. Some juggle between providers when possible. Others switch names on accounts: roommate, spouse, cousin. Each new name buys another billing cycle of delay. And when utilities finally issue threats, the consumer calls and says, "I have 3 kids and a fridge full of insulin." You think that customer is getting cut off? Not a chance. It's not a bluff. It's a system built on human decency that's now being weaponized for survival. People have realized utility companies can't afford the PR nightmare of cutting power in the dark. So they don't. They beg for partial payments instead. One anonymous executive from a Midwest gas provider even told Reuters that over 40% of delinquent customers in 2025 still have service and likely will for months. Translation? Utilities are bluffing. And once Americans figured that out, the strategy changed. Pay $50, keep the lights on, and ignore the rest. Internet bills? Same game. ISP reps are trained to offer courtesy extensions just to avoid service loss. We're not talking about deadbeats. We're talking about families who chose dinner over digits, warmth over Wi-Fi, and still somehow found a way to not get cut off. This isn't irresponsibility. This is strategic delay, a chess game of survival. And Americans are winning more rounds than the providers want to admit. Debt settlement is now a middle-class life hack. Remember when debt settlement used to sound like a last resort? Like the kind of thing shady telemarketers screamed about between payday loan commercials? Not anymore. In 2026, debt settlement has gone mainstream. It's become a calculated, almost smug move for a growing number of middle-class Americans who've done the math and realized that paying your full balance is financially idiotic. You pay for years, interest piles up, and then boom, one missed payment and your credit tanks anyway. So now people are skipping the struggle and going straight to the negotiation table, but on their own terms. No lawyers, no debt companies, just sheer audacity. They let the account age to 180 days. Wait for it to hit collections, then call up and say, I've got 30% in cash, take it or get nothing. And guess what? Creditors are taking the deals because they know if they push too hard, they get $0. According to the American Fair Credit Council, settlements in 2025 hit an all-time high with over $10.8 billion in consumer debt reduced via negotiation. And that doesn't even count the informal kitchen table deals being cut every day between desperate creditors and clever consumers. TikTok is full of tutorials, now scripts, call recordings, timelines. Day 91. I stopped paying Chase. Here's how I got them down to 35%. The algorithms are spreading the gospel, and people with six-figure incomes and college degrees are taking notes. They're treating credit card debt like a bad haircut. Ugly, temporary, and worth ignoring until it can be fixed at a discount. Even more wild, some folks are taking out zero-interest buy now, pay later loans just to stack up lump sums for settlement offers. Others are ghosting one creditor just long enough to settle with another. It's financial triage on a grand scale. And here's the darkest part. The people who never miss a payment are the ones getting fleeced. Because in this upside-down economy, loyalty doesn't buy you mercy, it buys you interest. The longer you play the good borrower, the more you pay. So smart Americans are quitting the game, tanking their score briefly, and emerging less broke than the people who played by the rules. That's not delinquency. That's economic warfare, and the rule followers are losing. Subscription debt is a hidden drain, and people are finally cutting the cord. Subscription debt. It's not the headline-grabbing $900 rent payment or the $30,000 student loan, but it's quietly draining billions from American wallets every year. You know those free trials, those $7.99 per month charges that hit your account at 3 a.m.? Yeah, those. In 2025, the average U.S. household paid for 12 separate digital subscriptions, according to a report by C+R Research, totaling $1,500 a year, often without even realizing it. And that's just digital. Add gym memberships, food boxes, streaming, gaming, music, apps, and you're looking at a $2,300 annual bleed per household. Here's the wild part. 74% of people surveyed admitted they kept at least one subscription they forgot about for over 6 months. That's not budgeting failure. That's death by autopay. But in 2026, Americans are finally waking up. There's an entire Reddit movement called Subscription Purge. TikTokers post videos of canceling Netflix, Hulu, HBO, and Apple TV Plus in the same day like they just escaped prison. Why? Because they've realized these bills are invisible leeches. They don't send warning notices, they don't scream final notice, they just siphon your money quietly while you sleep. And when rent spikes, when groceries hit $400 a week, guess what goes first? The subscription ecosystem. And it's causing ripple effects. Streaming giants like Disney Plus and Peacock reported higher than expected churn rates in 2025, blaming it on economic pressure. No, it's not pressure, it's awakening. People are finally treating subscriptions like optional luxuries, not necessities. They're using tools like Truebill and Rocket Money to auto-kill anything that doesn't scream value. Some are going full rogue, sharing logins, rotating trials, or even pirating again, just like it's 2008. The trust is broken. Consumers are tired of auto-renewals and sneaky tier upgrades. And most importantly, they figured out that keeping the lights on is more important than watching the next season of Succession. This isn't belt-tightening, it's budget triage, and subscriptions are the first to get cut. The new American motto: if it doesn't feed me, house me, or help me sleep, it's gone. And every time a $12.99 charge disappears from someone's bank account, that's not just a savings, it's a victory. Americans are moving out. Not just of apartments, but the whole rental system. People aren't just behind on rent, they're opting out of the rental system altogether. And not because they're broke, though many are, but because they've stopped believing rent is worth paying. This is bigger than eviction notices. This is a mass exodus. In 2025, eviction filings reached pre-pandemic levels with over 4.2 million cases nationwide. But here's what's new. Many tenants left before the sheriff showed up. They ghosted leases, skipped town, or moved in with friends, family, even strangers by choice. It's the rise of what economists are calling non-market housing behavior. Translation: people are refusing to participate in a system that demands $2,400 per month for a glorified shoebox with mold and broken plumbing. And honestly, who can blame them? The median rent in cities like Austin, San Diego, and Miami jumped 35% since 2021. Meanwhile, wages grew just 3.4% annually, adjusted for inflation. You do the math. The numbers don't work. And renters have figured out they can survive without a lease. Multifamily households are surging. Adult kids are moving back in, yes, again. Friends are turning living rooms into bedrooms. And a whole underground economy of bartered rooms, mobile living, and month-to-month ghost tenancies is exploding. Facebook Marketplace is full of people offering to watch your house for free rent. Craigslist is now the black market for unregistered sublets. Even RV parks are full of millennials working remote jobs from park trailers. You think these people want this life? Most don't. But they've stopped feeling ashamed. Why pay $2,000 a month when you can crash with your cousin, throw $300 at groceries, and actually have savings for once? It's a protest, a housing walkout, and landlords are starting to panic. Vacancy rates are creeping up, incentives are back first month free, no deposit, we'll throw in Wi-Fi. But renters aren't biting. They've seen the future, and it looks like a tent in mom's backyard or a cot in the garage of a friend's duplex. It's not pretty, but it's sane. Renters no longer view themselves as stuck. They view rent as a scam they've escaped, and in a system where leases have become shackles, walking away isn't failure. It's freedom. People are now building credit scores they never intend to use. This is where the game flips completely. Because in 2026, more and more Americans are rebuilding their credit scores not to use them, but to weaponize them. That's right. People are now treating good credit not as a tool for upward mobility, but as bait. They polish up their credit file just long enough to secure what they need: a new apartment, a used car, a temporary line of credit, and then they pull the plug. Boom. Radio silence. It's credit fraud? No. It's strategic disobedience. Because Americans have learned what lenders don't want them to know. A high credit score is only useful if you plan to keep playing the game. And millions aren't. They're gaming the system with credit-boosting apps, self-lender accounts, authorized user hacks, and rent reporting services just to hit a 700+ long enough to make one move. A lease, a phone plan, maybe even a 0% APR card. And then, it's over. They disappear into the system, default, delay, ghost, and survive. Because the value of credit has been decoupled from its consequences. FICO 9 and Vantage Score 4.0, they ignore paid collections, they forgive old debt, they don't count medical. So people stop paying, wait the damage out, and rebuild in silence. And the lenders? They keep falling for it. In fact, Consumer Reports found that nearly 30% of consumers with recent defaults still qualified for new lines of credit in 2025. Why? Because the data doesn't keep up. Because the scoring models are flawed. Because the system wasn't designed for mass disobedience. And that's exactly what it's facing. Americans now view credit not as a financial passport, but as a temporary disguise. They wear it just long enough to get what they need, then shed it like a costume. And once you realize you can fake your way back to a 670 after defaulting on $12,000, the fear is gone. The game is exposed. The spell is broken. Credit is no longer a sacred trust. It's a system full of loopholes, and millions of people are walking through them with a smile. The financial system has lost its authority, and nobody's scared anymore. There was a time when missing a payment meant panic, when a red notice in the mail meant shame, when a phone call from a debt collector meant racing heartbeats and cold sweat. That time is over. Because here's the most dangerous thing that's happened in the past 3 years. The financial system lost its ability to scare people. And once that fear is gone, compliance collapses. Today, millions of Americans are staring down unpaid bills with zero anxiety. They're not worried. They're not panicking. They're done being afraid. Because fear only works when you believe there's something left to lose. But when you've maxed out your cards, your landlord just raised rent $400, your paycheck disappears before the 12th of every month, what's left to protect? Your credit score doesn't buy groceries. Your reputation, nobody's looking. Your future, you're already priced out of it. Americans have figured it out. They've read the fine print. They've seen how collectors bluff. They know most unpaid debts don't go to court, and if they do, you usually settle for less. They know wage garnishments are rare, repossession is expensive, and lawsuits cost money the lenders don't want to spend. And even when they do, people just switch jobs, close accounts, change banks. You can't punish someone who doesn't play the game anymore. That's what's terrifying to the institutions. Not that people are broke, that's old news. What's scary is that people are comfortable being broke. They've adapted. They've built lives around ducking bills, dodging collectors, surviving without stability. They've stopped watching their credit like a stock ticker. They don't answer unknown calls. They don't open mail labeled important. They sleep through final notice emails like it's spam because they know the truth. The system has no teeth. At least, not sharp ones. And when a population learns they can survive without permission, you've lost control. This isn't just non-payment. This is anarchy in khakis and yoga pants. It's single moms and Uber drivers and school teachers quietly ghosting MasterCard and Verizon with the calm confidence of someone who knows nothing bad is actually going to happen. The banks can't fix this. The government can't legislate fear back into people's bones because the truth is out. Obedience is a choice, and millions have already chosen to say no. The economy broke. First, people are just returning the favor. Let's stop pretending people woke up one day and decided to stop paying bills out of laziness or stupidity. That's not what happened. What happened is the economy broke first, and now people are just returning the favor. The cost of living detonated. Inflation didn't just raise prices, it erased choices. You want to know why people stopped paying Capital One? Because eggs are $5. Because rent jumped 40% and income stayed flat. Because a family of four in a mid-sized city now spends $1,200 a month on groceries and gas eats another $300. Because every emergency, a flat tire, a sick kid, a busted fridge is now a financial cliff. People didn't stop paying because they failed. They stopped paying because the economy did. And now the rules are changing. The social contract, the idea that if you work hard, pay your bills, and follow the rules, you'll get ahead, has been shattered. Millennials and Gen Z watch their parents pay off 30-year mortgages and retire into bankruptcy. They're not buying that future. They're not saving for one. They're surviving in the now. And if that means not paying Discover so they can eat this week, guess what? Discover loses. It's that simple. Americans are not the collapse. They're the reaction. They are the logical output of a system that ran on debt as virtue and scarcity as control. A system that rewarded greed, punished honesty, and marketed hope like a subscription box. And now that system is being rejected. Quietly. Massively. Not through protest signs or viral hashtags, but through something far more powerful. Silence. The silence of bills unanswered. The silence of envelopes unopened. The silence of people who know the game is rigged and have simply stopped playing. And here's the scariest part for the institutions. It's working. Because in 2026, not paying your bills is no longer failure. It's a rational economic decision. And the people doing it aren't rebels. They're survivors. They're not burning the system down. They're walking out the side door. Calm. Quiet. Free. And for the first time in their lives, they feel like they're winning. You're not failing. You're adapting. The system broke first, and now you're just surviving smarter. So if you've stopped paying, you're not alone. You're just early. Subscribe for more truth they don't want you to hear.